I guess it's safe to say that during your first watching of Kakegurui, you are both intrigued and plastered onto the screen. The anime is both weird and new in a good way. It also has a lot of simple elements on how it does that, which is what I'm gonna be talking about today. I'm gonna be surprised if you hadn't watched Kakegurui yet and somehow found this video, because it's one of the most easiest anime to get your hands onto, because it's available on Netflix. For context, the show is about a school designed for gambling where everything from classes and tradition is all about gambling with money, life, and dignity. And that's about it, really. So what exactly am I talking about? I'm talking about how Kakegurui manages to get its viewers to grip onto their seats. Basically, I'm talking about the hype and build-up in every episode, on how and why they manage to pull it off. I'll be dividing it into 3 parts. The first part is the setup, where they talk about the game that they're about to play, in extreme details, to let the audience know what's about to happen. And the game themselves are interesting and new, because it's not just about traditional poker or Uno, or any sort of card games that we are all well familiar with. And yes, I know that this game exists out there in other media, but for a casual viewer, I'd bet that they're seeing this for the first time like I did. It's important to know that the details themselves are important, because without the details, the viewers will not know what is happening on the screen. Well, sure, you can see it, but you don't understand it. Animation works best if the message that they are trying to convey reflects on what you see on screen. Similar to how it's satisfying to understand what's going on in certain scenes in movies compared to the friend you forced to watch it with you. The same can be said in games. If you don't know what's going on, then why watch it? But not all has to be explained to be enjoyed. There are a lot of animes where the reasons are so open that there are communities still trying to dissect it. One good example of this is Evangelion. Not everything that the character does is in any way explained or talked about. You just see them go about their daily lives and you just consume it. But yes, in the case of Kakegurui, if we don't know what's happening, then we already eliminated half of the fun. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that they thoroughly explain the rules and regulations to let us, the audience, know what is happening on the screen. The games themselves are not that complex. It doesn't add up to one single final game after another, which is what they did with the second season. But it's more like a bite-sized game, different enough to be both interesting and new. Just take a look at the 3rd season of Log Horizon, for example. I bet half of the people watching it don't even know what's happening in there anymore. The show itself evolved from politics anime with a hint of action to politics anime plus with a dash of democracy. But yes, you get the idea. Basically, Log Horizon Season 3 is equivalent to multiple events that adds up to a single goal or multiple goals, whereas Kakegurui is equivalent to one topic at a time. Now let's move on to the second one. It's the part where the fun begins. It's also the part where they establish the tension in the scenes. If you look at it from an anime perspective, the stakes are pretty small, compared to other anime where the stakes are the safety of the whole world and the gazillion people that inhabit them. In Kakegurui, however, the stakes are just money. Now, that's not at all a downside. In fact, it's actually an advantage, because if you think about it, the world that they showcase to us is just a school that exists outside of politics and global destructions, and anything that happens inside the school stays there. And even if someone got blinded inside the room or died, the whole world will move on. It's not gonna be the end of the world, nor there is a need to save it. To put it simple, the stakes are small enough that anything can happen. And that alone makes you wonder on what will happen next. For all we know, Jammy can lose her finger on the next episode and lose all her money on the next. Of course, she still has plot armor, there's no doubt about that. But since the stakes are small enough, it's not life-threatening, but rather it makes you wonder on what will happen next. Being curious about the show or the scenes you are trying to watch is also important. Take it from Andrew Stanton's unifying theory of 2 plus 2.
It confirms something I really had a hunch on, is that the audience actually wants to work for their meal. They just don't want to know that they're doing that. That's your job as a storyteller, is to hide the fact that you're making them work for their meal. We're born problem solvers. We're compelled to deduce and to deduct, because that's what we do in real life. It's this well-organized absence of information that draws us in.
Now, the show gives you the instructions and the preface. And yes, you know how the games work, but you don't know how it will turn out or if there's a hidden cheating mechanic going on in the background. Third part is the characters. The characters has this unique dynamic where we have Susui, who is a rational thinker and is probably the most normal out of anyone in the group. He represents us, the normal viewers, on how a normal human being could operate in a gambling world filled with crazy people and psychopaths. Most of his decisions are more or less the most human out of all the characters in the show. Having that sense of familiarity around a single character works because the rest of them are all crazy, complete with outlandish ideas and decisions to propel the story, or rather the game, forward. I mean, look at Jabami for example. Her actions and decisions are all irrational or downright crazy, but somehow it works, and she always comes out on top. Mary is the representation of what a peak student looks like in that school. She's rational and cunning but lacks the boldness like the other characters. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that the characters are all fleshed out and interesting. It's not just Jabami being an all-in-one strongest protagonist, but more like Jabami makes irrational decisions, then Mary makes a calculated rational decision, then Suzui amazed by both of those decisions. Yeah, that's about it. I just want to talk about how nice Kakegurui is and how simple it was before the thoughts jumps out of my memory.